Jingle bell, jingle bell. It looks like a little Christmas tree ornament, like some mistletoe or something. I think that's what the fish think it is. This is one of my favorite ways to catch fish in the fall time. Water temps get down into the mid 60s, and for me, that's when this really starts popping off. And it'll be productive all the way into the low 50s. You know, 51 is about the lowest I usually do it. You can still catch fish in like 48, but that pattern kind of starts going away. Some of the key things with punching grass mats: bait and green grass. You got to find the bait and you got to find the green grass, because the green grass is what sounds like I can get ready to say, and the green grass grows all around and around. That's this old nursery rhyme that my grandma used to sing me. But the bait is going to be in the green grass. So as the grass starts to die, the bait moves out. But that's super important this time of year. You want to find the areas that are holding the bait, and the bass will be in there because that's their groceries. That's what they're going to do. They're out there to eat, and if there's no bait in the grass, you're probably not going to have a lot of bass. You might catch one every once in a while, but key areas to look for, usually the main lake is when it all kind of starts happening. And then as the shad and the bluegill start moving around, you know, the shad will migrate back into some of the pockets and stuff, but there's always going to be main lake fish. But I like to fish that main lake grass. Seems like it gets right first, head back into the creeks. That's stuff that kind of starts dying a little bit faster. But you got to move around, okay? That's what I'm getting at. Sometimes the main lake's firing, sometimes, you know, secondary points and back in the backs of coves and the backs of creeks. Points are always a good place, no matter what. I mean, grass or not, points are just a great place to go check out.
Punching fish. Man, trying to take advantage of the last of this grass. This is a good bite for such a little fish. It's a little gambler burner crawl. Whatever.
If I can find a grass mat with a nice hard edge and bait in it, I feel like I'm gonna catch some fish out of it. It just gives me a little bit more confidence. And an edge is kind of like a lay down. This isn't the perfect illustration, but you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So let's just pretend this is a grass mat. It has a really hard edge, right? This is the main lake. The bass can be sitting underneath here and they can really look out. They got a nice clean view of something that's out in that main lake. And it seems like all you got to do is figure out how far in off that edge they are. If the wind is blowing in hard on this mat, typically they're going to be right on the outside of it, or maybe even on the inside. Some of these mats, if they're on a riprap bank, they'll have an inside edge. Sometimes they'll be sitting on that inside edge. If it's slick and calm, they could be anywhere. And sometimes there's a pattern with how far back in the mat, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just random. But what's not random is the bait. The bait is key. You got to find the bait. You got to keep moving around until you find the bait, and then you will find the bass.
See, the north wind has got some of this bait pushed up in this grass. I think that's why there's big fish roaming around in here.
I like the little small mats with irregularities. You know, a straight mat with a nice edge is one thing, but if you can find these little smaller patches that have little bitty points and irregularities, it seems like you're going to catch that bigger fish, that better than average quality fish going to be sitting in there. The kind of bank that it's on can make a difference. You know, it's kind of like anything else. You're looking for changes. You're looking for maybe a piece of hardcover that's in that grass. Maybe there's a rock change on the bank. Two different kinds of vegetation that come together. Say you got milfoil bumping up against lily pads or bumping up against the reeds that are on the bank. Cattails and milfoil. Just any kind of mix of vegetation, it creates another edge inside of that grass mat and it draws those fish in.
There he is. That's another good fish. Boom. There you go. Another good fish.
The bite is something that can be a little bit tricky. Most of the time, they don't really slam it. I mean, there are days when they're super aggressive and they will just grab it and move off with it. But majority of the time, it's less than that. It's a pitch it in there. It gets down to the bottom. You kind of pull up on it. I'll kind of hop it a couple times, and then set it back down. And then you might go and pull up on it again, and it feels kind of heavy, you know? And sometimes that's all you get. It'll just feel a little bit mushy. There's other times when you check it, you pull up on it, and you just feel the fish kind of pulling off, just pulling off. So you kind of got to get in tune with it. You know, you may miss a few fish. I miss a few fish the first couple times I go out and do it of the year. So it just depends on how they're biting that time of the year. But it can be a real subtle bite, just a little mush bite. So you really got to be focused and be in tune with your bait.
All right, folks, there we go. Okay, so what's going on here today? We got a pretty big cold front to push through. And, you know, flipping grass, fishing grass, it's kind of a 1-2 punch. I mean, punching, obviously, no pun intended, but a frog and a toad. Those 3 baits figure out the mood of the fish. We had a really significant cold front come through. It's 40 degrees out here. The wind's blowing like 20 out of the north. So the wind chill's like 30, low 30s or something. It's cold. You know, I've had a couple kind of roll up on a toad. They don't seem to be wanting it. And I haven't really done a lot of punching because the toad and frog bite's been so good. So I decided, you know, I'm gonna kind of keep this punch rod in my hand. And I only had a couple hours to fish. But seems like I'm getting some reaction on this. This is a Killer G. This is a Gambler Burner Crawl and Killer G. 1 ounce tungsten weight. Little bobber stop there, 50-pound braid, and a 7'11" loose custom light rod. You know, good punching fish. Long, lean, feeding up on bluegill. You know, winter's coming. They know water temp's like 54 degrees. That's kind of the cutoff point. Once it gets down to like 52, it gets kind of hard to catch these fish in the grass. I've caught them down to 49 or even 48, but that 55-degree range is about perfect. The grass is still kind of green. It's starting to die, but you can still find good stretches of grass. Let's let this go.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the details. 50-pound braid. Some folks like 65. I'm just a fan of 50-pound braid. I mean, Power Pro, whatever brand. It doesn't really matter. There's a ton of good braids out there in the market. A 7/4 to 7/11 rod, maybe 8 foot. I have a 7/11. This is just a loose custom light. If you want to know the model number, it's the LCL MCR. It's a Magnum cranking rod. 7'11", medium heavy, moderate action. I like that moderate action when I'm punching. You can see this tip here. It's not a broomstick. And I think that is very important. Your pitching accuracy will be amplified, but more importantly is when you get that bite and you set the hook, you've got a little bit of, I don't even want to call it parabolic, but you've got a little bit of a softer tip, a more moderate tip, and it keeps the line tight. It keeps that braid tight. You got braid, you don't need a broomstick. You know, you can always go down a power when you're throwing braid. This is plenty of rod to get that hook into the fish. But there's a big advantage with having a little bit softer tip. If you got a really stiff rod, when you set and that fish moves forward, you're gonna get slack in your line. As soon as you get slack in your line, most of the time you're gonna lose the fish. Not all the time, but a lot of times you will lose the fish because that flipping hook has got a really big diameter. It's gonna leave a big hole. If you get any kind of slack in there, that hook will back out of that hole. So a little bit softer action rod is gonna keep some tension on that line and keep that fish pegged up. The reason I like a 7'11" rod is because when you set on that fish, a lot of times, well, you want to get him out as fast as possible. Sometimes he's going to get hung up in that grass, and that's going to take your reel out of play. You're going to be winding down, and you're going to use that really long rod to pull that fish out. The shorter the rod, the more work it's going to be, the less leverage you have, and the better chance of losing that fish. I like a 7-to-1, 6-to-4 or 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. It's got plenty of power. You can catch up with those fish if they do take off.
There he is. Nice. Chunky little monkey. A last minute toadfish. That was a heck of a bite. Feels good to get a blow up. Love fall fishing, man. It's going away. It is going away.
Bobber stop. That right there is key, folks. Typically I have 2 on there. I guess I lost one while I was fishing. But I like a 1-ounce weight. If I can get by with a 1-ounce weight and I can get in and out of the mat cleanly with a 1-ounce weight, that's what I'm going with. A couple reasons why I like that. The bigger the weight, the more it blows the fish's mouth out. So you can just imagine that that fish is coming up behind it and grabbing this. When you set, it has a tendency to the fish has a tendency to open his mouth. So the bigger that weight, the more likely it is to blow his mouth out. And that kind of comes back to the hook set too. There's a certain way to set on these. But I like that 1-ounce weight for that reason, and it's also easier to manage throughout the day. You know, it doesn't sound like much, but there's a big difference in a 1 ounce and an ounce and a half as far as, you know, you make 500 flips a day. It wears on you. It just comes in and out of the cover better for me. It just handles better. I can be a little bit more accurate, and it's kind of what I'm used to. But there are times when you got to move up to 1 1/4 ounce or 1 1/2 ounces. This is the kind of hook I like. Right there. I like that plastic barb. I don't like the ones that have the shrink wrap and a little metal piece or the mono. It seems like it tears the bait up a lot more. I'm a big fan of the straight shank flipping hook with that hard plastic keep on there. But bottom line, whatever you're using, if it's working, keep using it, because that's all that matters. So on most of my baits, I'm using that 4-aught. If I'm dropping down to something like a BB cricket or a speed crawl or something, then I'll certainly drop down to a 3-aught.
There he is. That's a good fish. That's a real good fish. Holy cow, look at that. Here we go. Look at that, folks. That's a punching fish. Holy moly. Holy moly. Dude, that's a freaking beast. Nice. Boom, look at that. That's a tank. Hey, punching. Fall time. Coming into winter. Water temp's 55 degrees. The grass is starting to die off, but there's still bait in the grass. You know, I did a little bit of scanning. I didn't see a lot of bait offshore. So when that happens, I just kind of assume that the bait is in the grass, and just a little subtle bite. You know, there's leaves in here. You got a lot of leaves and debris, and you just go down the bank, kind of flip and look for the green grass. There's a little bit of green grass. Some of it's dead, but you gotta listen for bait. And that's what can happen, man. I mean, that is a beautiful fish. Just solid. Look how fat that belly is. Golly. Just throwing I got a 7'11" Hawgz Custom Light, 1 ounce weight, and this is just a little Gambler burner crawl. I'm trying to stay out of this grass. Just a little Gambler burner crawl.
Let's talk about some of the baits that I use. This right here is the Gambler burner crawl. Had a lot of success on this the last couple of years. I mean, I'm a really big fan of this. And the crawl is one of the options. You know, the other crawl that I throw is a Rage Crawl. Strike King Rage Crawl, Gambler Burner Crawl. It's pretty much the two that I've been using the last couple of years. Whatever crawl you have confidence in, I think it's gonna work just fine. The main thing is to figure out if they want the flapping action of a crawl or something more subtle like a beaver. Some days they want the beaver, some days they want a little more action. And then there's some days they want kind of a crossover, like the spicy beaver. You know, this is a good one to throw. It's kind of in between. It's got the flapping action, but it's got more of that beaver style profile. This Hawgz Custom Bait Bingo, same kind of thing. It's a beaver style bait, but it's got that profile. So you got the crawl profile, the flippers on it, or you just got the beaver style profile. The only other bait that I throw besides the finesse ones, like I mentioned, I throw the BB cricket and I throw the speed crawl. Sometimes I'll throw a little baby brush hog, but Missile Baits makes a destroyer. This is a little bit different. For some reason, they like this big old sucker. Here's the Hawgz Bingo. It's quite a bit bigger. It's got these tentacles. It's got these brush hog type tentacles on there, and it's got that D-bomb profile. It's a little bit more slender than a D-bomb. This is a great alternative. You know, this is targeting a little bit bigger fish, but there's times when they want this big old thing over some of the other ones. So you gotta rotate. Main thing is figuring out whether they want actions on the flippers or they want just a straight gliding action. You can throw, there's other baits out there that you can throw a tube and all that, but this is just stuff that I typically throw that I have confidence in and I can talk about that I have caught fish on.
It's fun. Just gotta keep covering water.
I'll have links to these baits in the description box. If you got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love talking with you guys. I love chatting with you guys. On the hook set, you don't have to really jack them. All you gotta do is kind of reel down and just pull into them. So sometimes I get excited and I really get on it, but you really don't have to. You've got a long rod, you've got 50-pound braid, you got a big hook, and it just moves it. Let me show you how I rig up my punch rig. So first thing is bobber stops. 6 cents bobber stops I think are the best that I found. They're a little bit bigger, they hold up, they're more durable. I just think they're better. They're a little more expensive than some, but they do really well. So that is a bobber stop. It's got a little wire loop in there. You just run your line right through there. So once you get your line right through there, I've already put one on there, but I'm gonna put 2 on there. You just grab your line and then grab that bobber stop and just pull it towards your line and pull this away, and it comes on your line. It goes onto your line like that. So let's slide both of our bobber stops up. We've got a 1 ounce tungsten weight. Tungsten's key. It's a little more expensive, but you're really not gonna lose it. I've had this weight for a long time. So you're gonna slide it on. Then you're gonna take your flipping hook, 4-aught flipping hook, and I'm gonna use the San Diego jam knot. You know, some people swear by the Snell knot, some people swear by the Palomar knot. I don't swear by any of them, but I like the San Diego jam knot. That's just knot I use for everything, and it works fine. And like everything else, as long as you're not having a problem with it, there's really not a reason to change it. So just come through like this. And one thing you will need to do with the San Diego jam knot is you kind of want to put some weight on there. It's real important. So you can just hang a piece of plastic off there, it doesn't matter. Got our line through there. Here's your tag line right here. Here's your main line. Just bring that tag line up to about right here, tag, and just pinch it with your fingers right there. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna take this tag line and wrap around this loop like 6, I do 7 times with braid. So you're just gonna swing it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you've got this little loop right here. Here's your tag line. See, you're just gonna take the tag line and go right through that loop, pinch it. Once you pinch it, you can let go of all this. I'm gonna moisten it. And then I'm gonna kind of real softly slide that down. You don't wanna cinch it up because with braid it'll bind. And then I'm gonna grab this and just kind of pull it down. Once I get down to here, I can kind of shake it a little bit, just kind of pull it like this, and then grab the bend, just pull it real tight. And there you go, that's a San Diego jam knot. I'm gonna trim that off with my scissors. These are actually my daughter's scissors, but pretty sharp. I was kind of impressed. They cut the braid pretty good. Trim that off, and then I'm gonna take this burner crawl, go in like this, come down halfway, slide it up on that keeper. There's your keeper right here. So you're just gonna slide it up right there and get it above that little keeper there, then just pull it back down. Just take that hook and just run it straight in, get it nice and straight. There you go. So let your weight fall back down, take your bobber stops, and you're ready to go. Now something else I do is I leave a little bit of gap right here. A lot of times I leave about a 1/2 inch. It gives it a lot more action. You get all that. See, if you got it pinned up, it's stiff. Just let that bobber stop right up about a 1/2 inch. You're gonna get a little more action. It doesn't hurt anything at all.
There we go. Knew there was one in there somewhere. Jeez, making it hard on me. There we go. A little last minute punching fish. That was a good time. Short day. We caught a few. You know, this punching bite's about to end. So give me a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Subscribe to the channel. It was fun. It's cold. Catch a few fish. You warm up though. Until next time.